Yes, it is your first instant match reaction of the 25-26 season for the Toffees. As you've heard there, if you listen to the podcast, Jack Carlisle was at the Wham Stadium, as it's called, to see Accrington Stanley and Everton draw 1-1. It sounded, Dave, to be honest, like he was in a nightclub. He sounded like he got off before Beto's penalty. I went to the nearest nightclub in Accrington for a bit of a boogie there. There was a superstar blazing in the background, but cheers to Jack for sending that in from what looked like pretty horrendous weather conditions in Accrington. That away end, Dave, behind the goal. I love those terraces and the ones with no roof on, but I'm not going to lie, on nights like that, weather like that, I'm quite glad I'm not there. I'm glad to be sat here in the warmth of my own house watching it.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to anyone who went to that, to be honest with you, because the weather's, I mean, it's been pissing down all day as well, hasn't it? So you know what you're going to get there. I mean, I was going to go for myself because I work in Manchester, so getting to there is about 20-odd minutes away. And then I seen it was actually sold out, and I was thinking, you know, Everton at the back, when you're selling out games like that, I don't care how small the stadium is, to go in those conditions when it's not going to stop raining, and, you know, you want to go and watch the Blues first game back where you're not expecting them to be any good and even be able to run properly yet. I mean, it's just what our fans do, isn't it? You're going to sell out games wherever you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing effort from everybody there tonight. It sounded like it was the pretty decent atmosphere. There's some seemed like to be a bit of a back and forth between our fans and maybe one of the ball boys and the Accrington fans as well. So yeah, all in good spirits at this time of year. But and listen, we're not going to sit here necessarily and say Everton are going to be dreadful this season. We're not going to sit here and say Everton are going to win the league this season on the back of that. And don't really want to focus on negatives really either, Dave, because I think there's enough. Certainly enough in regards to mitigate circumstances why certain players tonight would have struggled. You know, that players out of position, not familiar with the lads playing next to them. But just on your overall thoughts of good things we can take away from that, what were the standouts for you?
I think the two obvious ones for me are two players that we had in midfield, and I thought it was Tim Irabunum and Harrison Armstrong as well. Thought the pair of them were head and shoulders above everyone else, particularly Irabunum as well, to be honest with you. I thought every time he received the ball, every time he won the ball back, he just looked like he wanted to drive forward. I don't know whether that's sort of an initiative that Moyes has told him he'd like to see from him, because I'd have expected a more sort of deep midfielder that you'd probably see alongside the Jessica throughout the coming campaign. But he just drove as much as he possibly could. He looked knackered at the end of it as well because he'd ran so much. Not knackered because it's still pre-season and everyone's got to get a lot fitter before we start next month. But he was really impressive. And I think when you get that sort of start to a pre-season friendly, it bodes well for someone that you can see who's got that enthusiasm even so early on. Because he missed out a lot, didn't he, last season with injuries, plus he wasn't getting in as a first-choice midfielder. He'd get on for the last 10, 15-minute games. And, you know, we bought him with a good reputation, didn't we? And he never really got a shot. So fair play to him for proper putting his head down and kicking on. And for me, he was comfortably the man of the match in that game.
Yeah, like, in the spirit of saying what I said before, like the good things about his game are really eye-catching, aren't they? In the sense, there's that run right at the end, wasn't there, where he sort of, you said he looked tired. I think there were moments where it looked like he was blowing a little bit, certainly going back the other way again, which is to be expected of him. But when he gets hold of the ball and tries to drive forward, he is very good dribbler. He's got great balance about him. Final ball and stuff needs work still. I think, you know, having that shot at the end in particular, you know, saw a few of our fans behind the goal, they're sort of throwing their arms up in the air at that point when he beat 3 or 4 players that have played in the past. But listen, yeah, so I think he's one of them. Like, we're still kind of learning about him, aren't we? Because we got like a glimpse of him early last season, but he looked really good. Then he got injured for a long time, and like he never really got his way back into the side, did he? Then under Moyes towards the back end of last season, because James Garner and Jessica were such a settled partnership. So like, it feels like we don't really know what he is yet in regards to what type of midfielder he is. Like, I think sometimes you look at him and think, you know, maybe better further forward, but then if you're playing further forward, would you take away that sort of ball carrying ability he's got from deep? So I think he's definitely got stuff to work with. But I thought Armstrong was our best player when he was on, to be honest. Like, again, this is the classic thing we said we're not going to do. I don't want to jump to major conclusions before, after one pre-season game played, but he feels like someone that Moyes is going to have a proper look at for me over the next few weeks, and certainly before they get to the States, because it feels like his ability to kind of play deeper in midfield, play more advanced. When he played against Peterborough last season, the FA Cup, he played wide on the right and did really well. He just feels like he could be a really useful player to have around, certainly in those first few weeks of the season when we might not have all the gaps filled in this squad. And tonight it was just, confidence on the ball, carrying it, getting into the box, drifting into wide positions. He seems to enjoy the physical battle as well. He looks like a proper all-rounder, doesn't he? And look, again, one of those players you don't necessarily know what his best position is yet, but you just look at him and go, that is a young player who's just clearly very good at a lot of things that you need to be good at to be a proper footballer.
Yeah, I think it's refreshing as well when you see a player like that. When I think we've spoke most of the summer about how many players we need to get in and how much business we've got to do with what I think it's almost exactly a month until the season starts for us. And look, you've still, in my opinion, you've still got to go and try and get at least half a dozen players in. But when you see someone like that there, you think, well, not just an additional option, but somebody who's looking to thrive when he gets his chance. And I think he's done his apprenticeship. I think he knows what this game's all about now when he's been in the division, that you're going to get kicked around. It's not so much about the quality, it's much more about the physical the physical reactions you're able to cope with in performances in the Championship, and he's got that. And that's happened. Good players have done that and worked their way up through going through the Championship. Just off the top of my head, do you remember when Seamus went there when we first got him in? Went and played there and then came back, and obviously the rest is history now, and he's still an Everton player. And I feel as if, he's got something there that's different to what we've had as well. I think Matt, and the comfort he has on the ball. There's a real stride to the way in which he plays. His movement seems to always be in the right position for the position for somebody to pass to. Everything looks to me like really positive. I've seen him a couple of times last year. And somebody who's going to create more players for places there, and that's exactly what we need. The amount of time we've had discussion, you and Paddy, what we've done on Blue Monday as well, spoke a lot about that midfield area being one of the main concerns we've got, as well as obviously we're going to sort of just strike it out for now, but maybe we need a bit more. That's a conversation for another time. But that midfield area, there's positions there up for grabs. As far as he's concerned, he's looking at it differently than we are, because we're thinking, let's go and sign him. We'll link with this. We'll link with that. When sometimes it's sitting right in front of you. And from what we saw today with those two that we've mentioned so far, there's a lot of things to look at and think. I want Moyes to have a good, like you said there, when you're over in Chicago and everything else going on in the States. You want to get a real look at these lads, and I'm pleased to see Moyes do that. And Moyes himself, just on a bit of a tangent with him, with these young lads, I'm really optimistic with him doing that, rather than he's not renowned for blooding young players, certainly not in his time with us. But if you're able to get that game time for them, I think maybe Moyes 2.0 or whatever you want to call him since coming to Everton and what he actually did at West Ham, he looks like he's able to sort of take that step back and have a look what's in front of him rather than going straight to the checkbook.
Yeah, I think even for a player as young as Armstrong, I think these moments are crucial, aren't they, in regards to making your impression? Because it kind of feels like, what is he now, 18? Like, he's approaching that level where, he's like you said, he's played a lot of football now. And there were just things tonight which I imagine, like in a normal Premier League game or a cup game, if he was playing, that actually meant something that might annoy the manager. But I think in pre-season, maybe the fact that he was, dropping off into a deeper position to try and get the ball, to say, right, I'm going to get it deeper, take it off the defenders and get us going. Like in a proper game, like, you might be a bit annoyed about him not holding his shape there or not staying at the top end of the pitch, but showing that kind of attitude and that little bit of swagger to say, I'm going to be the one who sort of kicks into life here when things weren't going great in that first half, I think is, a personality trait that the manager should like. So, yeah, really encouraging for me. I think we'll definitely see him start against Blackburn, and that's, I suppose it depends on who's back then for the States, and whether we've potentially got more players coming in there. Obviously, Beto as well, Dave, coming off the bench in the second half. Just a little reminder that From his point of view, supposedly, even though we've signed a new centre forward, that he's still knocking around. He will imagine, I think the shirt is very much his still after a good second half of last season. And I really enjoyed his penalty as well. Then he obviously struck it really well. But wasn't just a quick case of getting the ball out in a calm celebration. He proper giving it loads to the supporters. He looked like a lad who'd missed scoring goals over the past few months and was very pleased to stick one in the back of the net again.
Yeah, that's spot on. It's like when he hasn't been playing footy and he returns to school after the 6-week break in the summer, isn't it? And sees all his mates again for the game when they're in PE. Yeah, I mean, seeing him back in there, seeing what he can do, seeing what he's about. I mean, I definitely think he's progressed with his game since he's been with us. I mean, I know as soon as he said his name, I had a bit of a smile on my face. I think that's everybody's reaction when anyone speaks about him. It probably does him a disservice, to be honest with you, because he is unorthodox. But the fact he's unorthodox shouldn't shy away from the fact that he's a good player. He can do what he's asked to do on the pitch. And, it feels old-fashioned, this, but you've got a competition for one striking position. There's no way Everton are going to play two up front. Unless you get to a certain point in the second half of a game where you need to score a goal to get a draw or try and get 3 points, where you haven't deserved them or whatever. With him and Barry now, I can see the Beto's that type of character, and you've spoken to him as well, haven't you? Just seems like a lad who just wants to do everything he can to get every single percentage out of what he can do when he's on a football pitch, and that's formidable, I think, to the opposition. And I thought it was funny when he just grabbed that ball, wanted it back on the centre circle, like, let's crack on, let's go and get a win. I was like,
5 minutes to win this now.
I know. And as much as we laugh about it, I mean, that's just part of his build-up, isn't it? That's who he is. He didn't do his little celebration either. It was just like, let's get back to business and all that. He's infectious, I think, as well, Matt. That's one thing. What we see as fans, he's very infectious. He's not the laugh we thought he was when he first came in, and it often takes players a long time to get used to the Premier League. He has, and I've had plenty of debates with people. How many goals do you think he can go and get? He could certainly comfortably get into like double figures in the coming season. You've got two strikers who can go and do that. Then we're on a positive trajectory. Then I think, but I feel as well that he just offers so much more in terms of an outlet for these players. There's always a route one to him. I still don't think he's great in the air for somebody his size as well, but he's got everything else about him. There was a moment right at the end as well where the ball got forward, and with the commentary, Darren Griffiths and Snods were listening to it, they were commentating on it, and it gets launched to the corner. Like, yeah, he's not keeping that in. And he managed to get there and keep the ball in and just carried on, keeping it on the pitch and all that sort of thing. I think he's somebody you proper want to do well. And I know that's a pretty obvious thing to say, but someone who hasn't got the talent, let's say, of, say, an Alcaraz there, or other players that hopefully we're going to go and sign. Irabuna, when we mentioned, when you're talking about Armstrong as well. This is a fella who feels like he's had to scrap for everything he's got and get to the position where he is in his career. So fair play to him, and it's him up against the player we've just spent 30 odd million quid for. Then if he isn't the fella that starts and he's not chosen ahead of Barry, then that shows you something really positive, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point in regards to Beto, and like it feels like his career was never destined to end up with being the starting striker for a Premier League football club, and it feels like since he sort of got that, he is just relishing every moment of it, be it starting up front in starting up front to score in the last ever Merseyside derby at Goodison Park last season, or coming off the bench in a friendly playing for Everton against Accrington Stanley. Like, it feels like whatever it is, he's just trying to soak it all in and enjoy it all as much as he can. And I think he's going to be a good person, I think, to be around Barry, in the sense that we probably think that Thierry Barry has got technically probably a bit better overall. Everton will hope that he goes on to be a better player than Beto and offer us a lot more in terms of goals, a lot more in terms of all-around game. But I think having someone right there in your position who works so hard on the training pitch every day, who has clearly improved the game so much since he came to the club, or certainly since David Moyes came to the club, And that's a great example to have around and someone to say, well, listen, you are the shiny new thing that's come through the door here. We are all very excited about you, but you've got to match this fella for work rate and application and doing the hard yards on the training pitch. So I think he scored a penalty in a friendly tonight, which is great. But I think just all around that attitude he's got is going to be a really good sort of, not necessarily a role model for Thierry, but just a good example to have around him immediately when they're going off and doing the strike and training or whatever it is they do.
Well, if you've got everybody in the squad who has his attitude, we'd be talking about a comfortable top half side battling for European positions. I have no doubt about that. Like I said, that word infectious. I think his personality is like that around players, and you've got a young striker who's essentially like he has. He's come from a different place. He's come from a foreign side into a division that's completely different. And he, like you say, that word role model. I think it probably is roundabout the way to describe it. Really, he's a role model for somebody who you want. He's probably the type that turns up at training first every single day, goes home last, maybe goes on a run when all the lads are back in the showers and all that sort of thing. He feels to me like he'd be able to get a positive out of others there. Certainly us as fans, look at the reflection of us as fans watching him. When he scores, I don't know about you, but it feels like I celebrate a little bit more when Beto scores a goal. And that to me is sort of like it's evidence of what you want to see from him. And again, it's just I think the sort of narrative that he started at Everton and the way he is right now, don't think we've seen that happen, but it fits the way Evertonians are. And probably going a little bit too deep into that. And again, it's probably another for another conversation about him. But there's a reflection of him in a lot what we see as well. And that showed it tonight against the side where players aren't going to go into a half-arse, but you're going to be alive. If you're watching the first pre-season friendly in the middle of July, you're expecting players to. It's a bit of a warm-up for them. A lot of players to get fitted. They're all in sort of different levels of what they're able to do at this stage. He looked like he played in the Premier League last week because he was throwing himself. So I don't mind any of that at all, and more than happy for them to keep going and have a competition for the place as well.
Yeah, I asked people on Twitter, Dave, before we wrap up, for the hot takes from this game, because I think that'd be fair, but lukewarm takes from that match. I'm going to quickly rattle through some of these now. So if you've got any strong thoughts on any of them, feel free to jump in. First one I've just seen there is from Mickey Vander, who said, make sure Dave keeps calm, Matt. It wasn't that bad.
What have I said that's bad?
This is live, but this is before we even start recording. So I think people were just expecting I think Mickey was obviously expecting to be quite down the dumps about things.
Oh no, he might have been referring to the fact that I hate paying for pre-season friendlies.
Fair enough. Yeah. I was just of the view that season ticket holders would get it for free still. I don't think I've watched one for a while. So
hang on, did the season ticket holder get it free?
No,
they didn't.
No, you don't. No, so it's
all right.
I would $7.99 tonight, or you could like get this and Blackburn for a package. Yeah.
It's like when you get like the Lord of the Rings trio or something like that, isn't it? You pay 20 quid for the 3 or 10 at each.
Yeah. We've got this one. Stephen Williams said, think the 3 young lads sort of showed what we are missing. Energy and a bit of pace out wide and a fullback. Obviously not the level needed, but key areas to invest in. We have desperately needed pace for years. Really hope we get some in. Yeah, Heath and Clark did well, didn't they? I think that obviously Heath won the penalty with a nice bit of skill, and Clark didn't really get into the game straight away when he came on, but sort of showed a few flashes. And he's only 16. I think he signed it from Wimbledon last summer, but both of them look pretty promising, didn't they? I think Heath's 20 now, so maybe one of those where he's not going to get games this year. He might have to think about a move, but Clark in particular at 16 looked like he had a bit about him.
Yeah, he did. Looked like he was happy to express himself as well, which is a difficult thing to do when you're trying to put yourself forward and put a name on a team sheet at such a young age. He come on and he's driving at people. outrageous bit of skill as well at the front of the pitch there. Love seeing all that. Love seeing a young player with that level of confidence on him. The other kid as well. I mean, won us the penalty. Quick feet. The kind of player I think that he probably does need a loan. Need to go and go and get a trade elsewhere first, and then we can see what he's fully about. Like Armstrong, like even Irabunum to a certain extent, where they need to go and play the trade somebody else first, and then you're able to get a good look at them in a pre-season. So maybe one for like a year's time. But the lad Clark there did show quite a bit where you're thinking you'd have him on your bench there and see what we can do when you need someone else to come on for a player that's injured. We're like with injured players, might well get a go. Let's see him in the rest of the pre-season games.
Yeah, I think Heath obviously was Academy Player of the Year last year, wasn't he? Or under 21s Player of the Year, and he got a new 2-year contract. So
bag full of tricks.
Yeah, not quite giving up on him yet, but it feels like now he's 20 and probably needs to either get that loan, come back, do really well, and then come back, or maybe they'll think about selling him if they get a good offer. But we'll wait and see on that. He was certainly good tonight. Dylan Lawrenson said, although Armstrong has been better, I think Irabuna would excel in the Championship this year. A loan to the Championship is probably the right move for him, but I want to extend him first because I expect him to do incredibly well there. So like you said there, Dave, but I suppose the only issue we've got at the moment is we haven't really got any midfielders, have we, other than him, James Garner and Idrissa Gueye. Maybe you could count Harrison Armstrong in there, but I imagine he'll probably play a bit more further forward. But if that sort of feels like the sort of deal that if we did sign a couple of central midfielders who could start regularly in the Premier League, that they would look at maybe getting Irabuna alone.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, and this is sort of the it's a problem, but this is the crux of where we are right now at this stage of a summer when you're trying to recruit new players. Right now, if you went into the start of the season this weekend against Blackburn, he'd be included and he might well start the game. In fact, he'd probably start the game, given the form that he showed there. So you don't know the way these sorts of things are going to happen. If it was this weekend we were starting the Premier League and Tim Irabuna was starting, would I be happy about it? No, because there's still a lot more to see from him. So I get the point about giving him a loan out because he's not going to get the game time you need for him to excel. 23 is not really going to do much in terms of the competitive nature of that. Get him back there. Look, Armstrong's an example now. And we're talking about younger players here who've shown how positive they can be, showing that they've got talent to play for us. How many times, and tend to have an argument about it a lot during the season when we're short of players, the academy is not really showing anything. These might not well have been initial academy players, a bit of them obviously coming from Villa, but to see us going and looking at that market, we can get a player where, you look that it's right in front of your face, what you think you've got to go out and buy. It saves you a hell of a lot of money, and I know we feel like we've got quite a bit to spend there. If Moyes looks at him a little bit more in the half a dozen games we've got before the start of the season, thinks, you know what, probably keep him on board. Let's see what we do until deadline day. And if we haven't got a player in the position that he'd occupy, then that's when you look at giving him a loan, because he can do that after the window's closed, can't he? So I think he's in a good position himself, and if he carries on like he did there, he's putting himself in Moyes' thoughts, isn't he?
Yeah, he had a really good pre-season last year as well, didn't he? And then started the season well, and he had about 20 minutes in that Bournemouth column. That injury seemed to derail him a little bit. So certainly be interested to see where, maybe a similar bracket to Armstrong. It feels like maybe one of them will stay and one of them will go out on loan, and we'll have to wait and see which one it is ultimately. But we also had a comment from, we'll finish off with this one, Dave, from Adam Hicken, who said the kit is quite nice, actually. Thoughts on it? I'm still not a fan. Like, I like the blue socks, but I just don't like the shirt. I just don't think I can get on board with the shirt.
I thought the shirt looked better today because it got a little bit darker when it was raining. It just looked like a deep blue, much more than the royal blue. Massive fan of the socks. I think, like we've spoken plenty in the past, I'd loved us to be all blue. I'd love us to have blue shorts as well.
I don't know.
You don't like that. You're not too keen on that, are you?
I like it as like a novelty every now and then, but
away game at Man United always seems you wear all blue.
Yeah, or like maybe but just the white socks and blue shorts. The white shorts and blue socks are it for me. All blue is just like Chelsea, and I think Everton is white shorts, blue shirt, and then blue socks for me, white socks for others. But yeah, I don't know. It's just something about this kit. I think it's just the pattern on it. I just can't quite
Yeah,
get fully behind it.
I know what you mean. It feels a little bit half-assed because it's like, oh, I'm going next to the river. Let's give it a little squiggle. It doesn't feel like it. They've got a real sort of marketing person involved, or somebody who does this sort of thing for some of the big brands across the world. I know, like everyone talks about where these lads come from, who make a story and the criticism they've had and all that sort of thing. But it's often when I look at kits that I don't like, and I'm thinking, I think a lot of people don't like it. I would say more people dislike it than actually like it, particularly due to the price, of course. But aside from that, when you look at it, you're thinking, he probably could have done a better job with that there. Is it that difficult to do a better job with a football kit? Suppose, you pay your money, you take your choice there. Not sure I'd be paying me money. But yeah, it's it looked better when it was covered in rain. I'll give them that.
Yeah, I mean, we're two fellas in our 30s, Dave, so maybe it's not for us. Maybe, there's kids and there'll be maybe people in the late teenage years, early 20s think the waves are very cool and we'll want to go and buy it. So,
well, the one thing I'd love to see the team do is wear it without the sponsor. I don't think they'd ever go to the first team. But I still can't get my head around how that's allowed to be sold. Because if you're the sponsor, you'd be like, you're not selling a shirt without our name, without our logo on it.
I think Watford have done the same, haven't they? Because they've got I can't remember who sponsors them, but they've got a very garish design. That's their sponsor, and they've offered people the option to buy it with and without. And they were a lot more open and explicit about it than we were, in the sense they put a statement out saying we appreciate the sponsors, not for everybody. So there's a shirt without it on. Like I said, I can't imagine the sponsors are very happy about that. But
it's their last year with us as well, isn't it? I suppose so.
Stake, yeah. So
yeah,
but yeah. So yeah. Sorry, Adam, can't quite get on board with the kit, mate. But yeah, maybe if we start doing well in it, it'll suddenly start to warm on me. Right, we'll wrap it up there. Nearly half an hour done there on that game. Accrington Stanley 1, Everton 1. If you are watching us on YouTube, do hit like, do hit subscribe to the little bell button underneath this video, and leave us a comment on anything you thought about the games today, about your thoughts on the kit as well. And me and Dave, just miserable old 30-somethings who need to just get with the trend, or is it not good? Do you agree with us on that front? Cheers to Jack as well, who braved the elements there at Wham Stadium. Send that message across. I hope he enjoys his night out in Accrington's finest nightclub, by the sounds of it. We've had plenty of comments out this week already. Dave, Roger, and Les did Blue Monday on Monday. Me and Paddy had Byline out on Tuesday. All the stuff in both of them still relevant despite the game tonight. If you've not listened to them yet, so do go back and check them out. We will have weekly and subs weekly and mailbag and all usual stuff building up to the game against Blackburn at the weekend. And we'll have a post-match podcast after that as well. So plenty going on. Up the toppies. We'll speak to you again very soon.